up, everybody? YouTube world, everybody out there. Problems back here. One more time. Week 6 coming up. Big week. Week 5 was pretty good. Had a couple games out there. A lot of shockers. A lot of people weren't ready for. So let's get right into it. Do the Week 5 roundup real quick. But Oklahoma State, Texas Tech play on that Thursday night. Oklahoma State looks really good. I think definitely a surprise team in the Big 12. It's going to be interesting to watch. May I add, probably some of the coolest uniforms I've seen this year. Very cool game out there. Good game. UCLA rolled on Arizona State. I mean, came out big. So UCLA that we've been waiting to see all year. They finally came out and showed it. And they were my pick to win the Pac-12. So I'm still standing pretty good on that one. Still undefeated. Looking okay. Couple upsets. Akron beat Pitt. Doesn't say a whole lot for the ACC. I know that after week 2, the ACC's been complete garbage. So that just definitely shows that they're still not very good at all. Actually. There's not a lot of teams in the ACC right now that are shining bright. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Wisconsin, slow start against South Florida. Figured it would have been a bigger win. I thought it was going to be a bigger win. I think the whole country thought it was going to be a bigger win, but it wasn't. Nevertheless, a win is a win. So Wisconsin over South Florida late. It wasn't a blowout. The score it was a later run. One of the games I really enjoyed watching. Georgia Tennessee. Love rivalry games. I think Georgia's the best team in the East, hands down. I don't think anybody else is better than they are right now, and I kind of got a man crush on Todd Gurley because he's probably one of the best tailbacks that we've seen in college football in the past 10 years. Better than Herschel Walker, like everyone's saying. I don't know about that, but he's pretty darn good. And if anybody got a chance to watch that game, the play where he stiff-armed like 3 people and then hurdled somebody and took off down the field for another 20 yards, the kid is impressive. And if anybody wants to watch an exciting player, tune in to any of the Georgia games for the rest of the year because this kid is that good. He's that good. If I had a chance to vote for the Heisman, he'd be getting my vote for number 1 to win the damn thing because every game he's played in this year, he's healthy. He's just, as a defensive coordinator, he has to give you nightmares and a headache because he's that good. And you can't stop him. There's just no stopping him. There's just no way possible that you can play with this kid because he's that good. So the Georgia-Tennessee, it was close. Tennessee looks good. I'm not going to say they're a powerhouse in the East, but they do look good. It was a rivalry game, so you have to account that for what it is. Georgia looked pretty good. I think that the South Carolina loss, once again, that's a rivalry game as well. I think that was kind of a fluke. But nevertheless, it was a conference loss. But Georgia over Tennessee, Todd Gurley's the man. Michigan State won again, and despite their loss to Oregon, I don't really know how else, who else the Big Ten has got that's really throwing it down and making the name for the conference more than Michigan State. I think that they're pretty upset about that loss, and I think if they can run that one back, it might not be the same, but that's the world that we live in. And the last one is South Carolina and Missouri. I live in South Carolina, so once again, I got to be careful about what I say. I'm not going to have people staying outside my house with, guns and stuff and waiting on me. Just kidding, but probably not really. South Carolina fell to Missouri late in the game. Missouri coming off a loss last week to Indiana, which they might have been a little pissed about. South Carolina, I'm not really sure if they just weren't ready for them or if they showed their true colors. A lot of questionable play calling in that game. I'm not really sure how what the coaching staff out there in South Carolina was thinking. There's a lot of times, a lot of throwing the ball when I Joe Schmo would say, "Run it and kill the clock, coach. You know, you're up. Why are you firing the pigskin and stopping the clock and giving these guys time to come back out on the field?" I don't understand what exactly Spurrier was doing, but then again, I don't make millions of dollars coaching football, so my opinion means about nothing at all. But you know, this is America, and you know, I'm allowed to say what I think. I think there was some bad play calling. South Carolina's defense looked a lot better than they usually have this year, to an extent, but offense just slow, questionable play calling. Nevertheless, South Carolina upset here in Billy Bryce Stadium, Columbia, by Missouri. So once again, the East in the SEC is just wide open, and we're going to get into that. But that's a recap for the games of Week 5, and we're going to be talking about conferences in Week 6 coming up. So let's get into this. Players of the Week. It's something new that I'm trying to do here. Trying to, you know, throw a shout out for what it's worth to some of the big performers of the week. You know, I got to go with my boy Todd Gurley. I mean, like I said, anybody who watched this guy play, not just in this Tennessee game, but even against South Carolina, Clemson, doesn't matter. Beast mode. It is what it is. I mean, the kid is that good. He had 208 yards and 2 touchdowns against Tennessee. I mean, granted, they didn't win by much, but a player like that is just doing things like this is just big. He had 200 plus yards against all-purpose yards against Clemson, or rushing and all-purpose against Clemson. South Carolina, even though they lost, he had 120-something plus yards. It would have been more. He had a run called back for holding, which really wouldn't matter. But I mean, the rules are the rules. He had a 65-yard something run that he just. The guy is so good. He's so big. He's so strong. And if you watch him play, it looks like he's not moving, but he's outrunning everybody. The comparison to Herschel Walker, I'm not going to say, obviously you have to compare any great tailback in Georgia to Herschel Walker because he's the great there. Just like if you compared any tailback into Texas, you have to compare him to either Earl Campbell or Ricky Williams. But Todd Gurley, in my opinion, in my book, is probably the greatest tailback that's ever come through Georgia. He's going to break Herschel Walker's records, and if he's not on a Heisman ballot by the end of this year, if he stays healthy, if he's not on a Heisman ballot by the end of this year, whether or not they win even their division of the SEC, it's not going to matter. The kid is fun to watch, and he's a threat for any defense out there to even come close to playing this guy. He's that good, and for everybody who maybe isn't as big into football as some of the nutballs like myself and people out there, just if you're bored, whatever, you see Georgia playing on TV, the SEC Network or CBS, tune in to watch this guy because he's that good to watch. He'll disappear into a pile, do a shimmy, a spin, and break outside and stiff arm 4 people and do a backflip over somebody to score a touchdown. Not really, but if he did it, it'd be fun to watch, but I wouldn't be shocked because he's that good. Another one I'm going to throw out there, a lot of people are going to be like, why the hell is he even saying this guy? Jared Goff from California threw for 449 yards and 7 touchdowns. Granted, I think they went into overtime against Colorado. Very high score game. For some reason, California has this much defense, like at all. The guys do not know how to play defense out there in Cali. But this kid is throwing the football a lot. I mean, California is putting up a lot of points. 7 touchdowns just last week, and he's not done. If you look at all his previous, I know they played Sacramento State, and I think he threw for 4 or 5, and I know they lost to Northwestern or whatnot, and that wasn't a very good game for them. But, okay, Colorado isn't the best team, but they're not a pushover, okay? And in the Pac-12, the sleeper teams are the ones that you overlook and hang, and then when you go to play them, they hang 40, 50 points on you, like California right now is more than capable of doing. You got to watch that. You really got to watch that. And in the Pac-12, I'm not going to say they're going to win the Pac-12 and or the division, but they definitely have the ability to upset somebody that they're not supposed to. So I'm going to call that now, and I want everybody to pay attention to that. Okay? So those are your players of the week. Okay. Your conferences. For the most part, nothing's really going to change here. I mean, your conference rankings are still, obviously your SEC is your number one in the country. There's no question about that. I mean, you have maybe not the East so much because who really knows who's good there? With Missouri beating South Carolina, Tennessee getting close with Georgia, rivalry of course. South Carolina beating Georgia, rivalry game of course. You have Florida who lost to Alabama. I don't know. It's tough to say. I still think Georgia's the best in the East. I think that the South Carolina game was kind of a fluke, and if you could run that one back, probably wouldn't happen the same. But Spurrier had them ready, but he didn't have them ready for A&M or Missouri. So, the SEC East, it is what it is. I still think they can beat like everybody in the ACC except for maybe Florida State because, let's face it, the ACC is not very good. Even though we're repping this right here, the ACC is not very good besides for maybe 2 teams, maybe 3 teams. The SEC obviously is one. The West is no joke. Mississippi State is good. Alabama, of course. Auburn, A&M, Arkansas scoring points now, giving people runs. There's just everybody. Pretty much everybody in the SEC West is good. Everybody. It goes from LSU, all of them. You got some really big games coming up this week. We'll talk about that later. But as far as a division of a conference, there's no one in the country that can compare to these guys. I think all of them are ranked. I mean, maybe not all of them, but literally everybody in the SEC West is ranked pretty much. They're going to beat the East. There's no question there. The self-destruction is going to come within. There's a couple teams in that division that if they win out, there's no reason that they should not win the national championship. Auburn, A&M, I don't think Mississippi State's got it in them to go all through it. Alabama too. The schedule of these guys getting ready to open up now from week 6 on is going to get scary. I mean scary. Auburn has got a schedule ahead of them that I don't think anybody else in the country would want to play. I mean, they've played some squads. I mean, they played Kansas State already. Arkansas was no joke. Of course, they play Alabama, A&M. Their South Carolina's coming to town. They got and then they've got their division and everybody in that. So there's really no question there that the SEC is the best. Second, you have to put the Pac-12. There's no question there. I mean, the Big 12 isn't even close. You have Arizona's playing well. Like I said, California is putting up points. Can't play defense for the damn, but they're putting up points. I mean, you used to have Oregon, Stanford, USC when they decide to play. Arizona State, even though they got crushed. And, of course, UCLA. The Pac-12 is just really, really, really stacked. You have Washington State, who can score points. Once again, can't play defense. If the Pac-12 ever figures out how to play defense, they're probably going to be really good. But until then, they're just putting up points. And unless you can score with them, I guess that's their objective. If you can score points with them, then you might be able to hang. Until then, it's not going to happen. Third has got to be the Big 12. Oklahoma, a lot of people think, well, they're not really playing anybody, blah, 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 whatever. They beat Alabama last year, and I think Alabama was better last year than they are this year. Granted, I think they gave up in the bowl game. But Oklahoma, come on. I mean, you got to give them a little bit of credit. You have Baylor, who obviously is good. I mean, they're still in the top 10, and a lot of people aren't talking about them. Really haven't gotten into a whole lot of conference play yet. Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is good. I mean, they lost to Florida State, and that was a good Florida State. That was with Jameis Big Mouth Winston. I can't stay out of trouble. I like the kid, but damn, but that's a different topic. Oklahoma State is still good. Texas Tech is still decent. They're not a bad team. And don't forget about Snyder and company out there in Manhattan. Kansas State is a good ball club. They lost to Auburn late. It's not like Auburn walked in there, beat them boys up, and went back to Auburn. No, no, no. They lost late in the game and hung with Auburn the whole time, which a lot of teams can't do at all, actually. So the Big 12 has got to be at 3. And obviously at number 4, you have to put the Big 10. Michigan State is good. You know, that their loss to Oregon, that's a pretty respectable loss. You know, Ohio State now is scoring points, even though Urban Meyer just said that Braxton Miller is still going to be a starter next year, which obviously you have to do that. But, you know, Barrett's getting his time in now, and he's only a freshman. So next year he'll be a decent backup. He's going to have reps. And then in 2 years when Miller's gone, Barrett, unless they recruit some freak, which, you know, Urban Meyer is known to do, they're going to have talent. Ohio State is still a decent team. I mean, Michigan is not good at all, actually. So we're not even going to bring them into the category. Penn State just lost their first game to Northwestern, which I'm not really sure how that even happens. But Penn State is not that bad of a team. Granted, they're not winning by big points, but a W is a W nowadays. And in the BCS era is over with. You're talking about playoffs. So a win is a win. You know, we're going back to the NFL. You're not getting points for this, that, and the other. Granted, they're not going to make the playoffs, but we're not going by that mess anymore. You know, if you're winning ball games, you're winning ball games, and that's just all there is to it. And obviously, number 5, you have to put the ACC, because let's be real honest. You know, even though we're wearing this right here and repping that right there, the ACC is not that good. Florida State had a damn scare against NC State. I mean, a damn scare. Granted, if you're a Seminole fan, you probably started shaking there for a minute when they went up by like 21 points. You know, you're having flashbacks of Sean Glennon and company wrecking house with, you know, your Seminoles. But nevertheless, once again, a win is a win. So is NC State good? Or is Florida State not that good? Was NC State just ready to play and Florida State thought it was a handover? As much as people were talking about it, and I know I said last week that it would be Florida State was going to go in there and walk them. They did win. Not a blowout, but Florida State did win. So, I mean, they're still the number 1 team in the country. You know, how many game winning streak? They won the national championship last year. And until they lose, they're the best team in the nation. But as far as the ACC goes, who else you got? I mean, you can say Clemson, I guess, right? They're probably, to me, I would say Clemson's the second best team in the conference. Duke just lost to Miami. Miami, who 2 weeks ago were not good. Now they're beating Duke, who was supposed to win the Coastal. You know, Virginia Tech's dropped 2 games. Who knows what's going on in the ACC Coastal? Honestly. Nobody knows what the hell's going on with them this weekend. Virginia Tech has UNC. UNC just got crushed by Clemson. I think Clemson put up 50 points, and the week before, ECU put up 70 on UNC. So unless North Carolina gets their defense together, it might be scary in Chapel Hill. Not from these guys, because who knows what the hell they're going to do when they show up. They show up and beat Ohio State in the shoe, play the game. People talking about, oh my goodness gracious, Virginia Tech might be a dark horse in the playoff system, and then we go home and drop one with like 2 minutes to go to East Carolina, and then the next week drop one to Georgia Tech, both at home, which is a disgrace because Lane Stadium is, anybody who's ever been there is you know what I'm talking about. Inner Sandman, that's all I need to say. But I mean, who else we got? Really? I mean, Virginia might be the best team in the Coastal for the ACC, but nevertheless, the ACC is still the bottom line as far as conferences go. All right, I'm going to throw this out there just for any of you people, guys out there, guys, girls, whoever, that, you know, wager money on football games. I don't know. I'm sure you know more than I do as is because you gamble on football. The worst team in college football right now has to be the SMU Mustangs. If you've seen these guys play, I think they've scored 6 points all year, or 10. I know it's 10 or less. And the average opponent score is like 48 or 49. They're not good at all. In fact, the SMU Mustangs are hands down the worst team in college football right now. Their coach quit, which is telling you something. And I think Eric Dickerson, don't quote me on this, but it was along these lines, said if you can't get this right, then just cancel the football team. You know, granted, this is the same team that got hit with the death penalty back in the 80s, which if any of you know everything that went along with that, they definitely deserve that, because that was some corrupt shit there for a while. But right now, I don't get it. Maybe it's just their administration, their coaching staff, their recruiters. I don't know. Seeing how you're in Dallas and you cannot recruit any talent right now at that school, I don't care if you're young, you should at least be scoring some type of points. Okay, these teams you're playing are not that great. Some of them, TCU was pretty good. But some of these teams that have walked you up and down the field, you aren't scoring anything. TCU's third string was in the game, I think, at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And you still couldn't score points. You're getting beat up and down the field. You know, you have got the worst team in football is the SMU Mustangs. And if you get a chance to watch them play, or if you gamble money, if the spread is anything, if they're playing a half reputable team and the spread is, I don't know, if they're giving SMU anything less, 35 or under, take that, because they're getting walked. They are not a good football team at all. Like I said, the average, I think, and I don't know every stat off the top of my head, and I really don't pay attention that much to SMU besides looking at the scoreboard to see how well they've done. Walked, and I think it's literally like between 46 and 48 points is how bad they've been getting beat up and down. And let's talk about some of the best games from Week 5. The first one we'll talk about is the South Carolina-Missouri game. I brushed on it a little bit earlier. Defensive ball game, it wasn't very high scoring. South Carolina gave up a touchdown to lose. Missouri scored with a minute or some seconds left in the fourth quarter to win the ball game. A lot of people on the West Coast probably could care less, but I know living here in South Carolina, they don't want to rewatch or watch it again. But if it comes on TV, it was definitely one of the better games this week, just because it's exciting, and everybody likes somebody that wins at the last second. Another one was the Arkansas A&M game. They went into overtime. Texas A&M ended up pulling it away in OT. If you like SEC pound, big, fast football, this was a game to watch. They put up points. Arkansas is running the ball very, very, very well. And, of course, A&M's just fun to watch because they just are fun to watch. They're a good football team to watch. Another one was the Florida State-NC State game. I said if your heart rate gets up watching football, this one was it. Watching the number one team in the country go down 21 points to NC State in a sea of red out there in Raleigh. Gain their composure, come back in the second half, and just outscore the Wolfpack. It was fun to watch. It shows that Jameis Winston, granted his off-the-field issues are moronic or whatever else, but he's a good football player. Jimbo Fisher did not panic. He looked calm, cool, collected on the sidelines. He came out there in the second half. It looked like nothing was wrong with him. Looked like they had just started a football game. Down points, who cares? We're going to go out here and this is what we're going to do. And that's what champions do. They come back. They don't panic. They play football. They stick to the fundamentals, and that's exactly what Florida State did. It looked like they came out there and their volume and their intensity were on 2. NC State came out there, put up points, showed that they wanted to win that ball game at home in front of their fans and get it. And then Florida State turned it up and said, we're done with this. We're going to win this game. It's time to go back to Tallahassee because we got class on Monday. But they will probably show that game again on ESPN Classic, ESPNU, something maybe late night, maybe DVR it in case you're bored of, and you're not catching up on your shows. Florida State, NC State game. Another one, if you like high-scoring football, Colorado and California was a game to watch. They literally, it was 59-56, I think. I'm just right off the top of my head. I think it was 59-56. California won in overtime. Goff threw 7 touchdowns, and the only reason I gave him mentioned him in the Players of the Week thing is because they won. Colorado's guy threw 7 touchdowns as well. I mean, the Pac-12 can't play defense. We've established that. But, everybody calm down. I'm just joking. But in this game, if you like people just going out there, throwing the football, scoring touchdowns, watching them, that was the game to watch. They're probably not going to be replaying it on the East Coast because, in all actuality, nobody on the East Coast really cares about Cal Berkeley football and or Colorado. They could really care less. People out west, I enjoy football, so I watched some of it, what I could of it. Great game to watch. Real good stuff to watch. And if you can catch any of those games and watch the replays of those, I highly encourage you to do so because they were very, very, very good to watch. All right, week 6 is coming up, and we got some really, really big games that I think are going to be. These are my picks for the best games of the week. Obviously, Thursday night you got Oregon, Arizona. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Arizona is pretty good. Rodriguez down there is really starting to pull some talent, and a lot of people are overlooking them. Don't underestimate that game. I think that I don't know. Naturally you would say Oregon. It's in Eugene. Naturally you would think that Oregon will win. I think they're going to win. It's going to be closer than people think. The spread, if it's anything more than 4, take Arizona because I think that it's going to be a closer ball game than people think, and that's the Thursday night game. Texas A&M and Mississippi State. Number 6 A&M against number 12 Mississippi State. Mississippi State really jumped a lot by beating LSU. If A&M can't play defense better than they did against Arkansas, this might be a damn game right here because Mississippi State played some defense against LSU. And A&M didn't play a whole lot against Arkansas. They did okay against South Carolina and some of their other games they've played here lately. That's going to be a good one to watch. And like I said, the SEC West, they're going to start clanging heads here soon because they've got to get into division play now. And that's when things are going to happen. Another big one in the West, Alabama, Ole Miss. Now, I'm not saying Ole Miss is a really bad team, but I am going to say that they are not as good as their rank shows. When they get into the heart of this damn conference play, they're going to be lucky if they only get out of it with 2 losses, okay? Can Alabama beat them? Ole Miss hasn't played a defense like Alabama yet, but Alabama's got some questions on at the quarterback position, and their offense really isn't as clicking as well as they have been. Of course, they had A.J. McCarron back last year and a couple years after, before, But it's going to be an interesting one to watch. I'm going to say Alabama, maybe by not a lot. Alabama should win this game, but it is going to be interesting. Another one is Oklahoma TCU. This is one of Oklahoma's big games this year. TCU, they smashed SMU last week. That's not saying a whole lot because they are not good. They suck really bad. It's time to see Oklahoma's going to start getting into conference play as well here soon, and they're going to start playing some of their competition within that conference, within the Big 12. Oklahoma should win this game. Like I said, maybe not a complete blowout, maybe 7-10, 14 points, nothing more than that. TCU's not bad, but I think Oklahoma is the better team. We got Notre Dame, Stanford. Stanford's loss was to USC, but then USC turns around and loses to Boston College, who Boston College ended up losing to Colorado State last week. So who really knows? But we do know that Notre Dame is undefeated for now. Everett Golston is back. And if anybody's watched these Fire and Irish boys play, They're pretty good. So I'm going to say Notre Dame over Stanford. I think Notre Dame's got what it takes. I think Stanford's got some question marks. Hogan's not playing incredibly well. Ty Montgomery, it seems like if you can bottle him up, you can beat Stanford. You know, if you can get big and physical with them, you can beat it. I'm going to say Notre Dame, not by a lot, but I think Notre Dame has what it takes to beat Stanford, and I'm going to call that one. LSU Auburn. Bayou Bengals, not yet. I don't think you got what it takes yet. You're really, really, really young. You can't figure out your quarterback. I know LSU is starting Harris. I think one of the freshmen they've got, they have so much talent, but they are so young. So young. Auburn, I think, has got it together. But like I said, this is that crazy. If Auburn can run through their schedule undefeated, no one's going to stop them. I think that they can win the national championship. A lot of Florida State friends are probably going to be upset that I said that, but it is true. I think that Auburn, if they run their schedule, has what it takes to beat everybody else. But that's why we got playoffs this year. But I think Auburn is over LSU just because of LSU's youth, how young they are. The next 2 years, if LSU can keep people healthy and keep them there without leaving, not next year, but the year after that, they're going to be good. They're going to be scary good because they're better than okay now with a lot of young players. Freshmen, true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. Nevertheless, they're freshmen. They have never played in a college scene before, and they're still doing work right now. The stable of tailbacks they have and the young talent they have everywhere else, that team in the next 2 years is going to be a dominating force. But for right now, Auburn over LSU. Big Ten matchup. We've got Michigan State, Nebraska. Now, Nebraska squeaked McNeese State. I don't think they're going to have what it takes to beat Michigan State. I think Sparty up there is on a rampage to make a name for themselves after that loss to Oregon. Okay, Michigan State is going to beat Nebraska, maybe by a lot, maybe by 15 or 20. I think they're pissed. Michigan State is pissed, and they're probably one of the easily top 10. I mean, obviously they are top 10, but they're one of the better teams in the country, and they are mad about that Oregon loss, and they are definitely not going to let the Cornhuskers, come up there and beat old Sparty down. I don't see that happening. If they do, whatever, people are wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one picking Michigan State to win this game, and I'm going to say 15 or 20 points. Got Arizona State and USC. Like I said, this is the USC team that beat Stanford and turns around and loses to Boston College. Arizona State coming off a waxing last week against UCLA. Probably not a really high scoring game. I think that both teams are going to start playing some defense. I think you got to take USC. Not by much. Arizona State isn't a bad team. They're probably better than 3/4 of the teams in the ACC, but I'm going to go with USC. And another Pac-12 matchup is Utah and UCLA. I picked Hundley to win and his boys to win the Pac-12, so it's going to be an interesting, probably going to be really high scoring, I would think. Maybe not. I've been wrong before, but should be fun to watch as far as that goes. I know I picked them to win it. So that's pretty much going to be your games of Week 6. A lot of SEC teams playing. There's going to be a lot of rotating within the top 15 because a lot of these top 15 SEC teams are clanging heads. Should be a fun week to watch. I'm excited. I know everybody out there that watches college football is pumped about it. So that's all I got for the preview of Week 6 coming up. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.